little say hello to David Fingerhut. I do believe we had him last year.
Yes.
The name, yes, that's what I thought. So he is a familiar face. But this is David Fingerhut. He's originally from Schenectady. He has been taking photographs for over 50 years. He specializes in nature photography and enjoys photographing the American landscape. His photographs have been shown in 16 countries at exhibits sponsored by the Photographic Society of America and has designated a star exhibitor in nature and color photography. I'm sorry, I blipped on the verbiage and had to go back and look at what I did wrong. Okay, Dave is a past president and director of the Colonial Camera Club outside Boston. He has judged photography competitions for 16 different camera clubs in New England, and his photographs have appeared in books, calendars, and magazines. Since moving to Saratoga Springs 5 years ago, David still does his own matting and framing and sells his framed photographs at outdoor art events and local exhibits. Thank you, David, for joining us and for coming back. We must have been nice to you last year. Pardon?
Yes, thank you for inviting me again.
Okay, and I will just hand it over to you and I will be quiet. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad to do it. Thanks for inviting me.
So you want to say anything, Dave, before we get started?
Well, so I grew up in Schenectady. On Eastern Parkway, just right next to Central Park, and left there after college and moved to Massachusetts for 40 years, about 40 years, and then I came back to Saratoga because my wife and I both like the area here, and we really like Saratoga. So I've gotten into horse racing photography now, which is kind of interesting, although it's kind of hard to get, trying to get a variety of pictures instead of keep getting the same ones all the time at the track. So that's been fun.
Okay. So let's get the show on the road here. I'm going to share my screen. Well, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome to our last competition of the year, aside from our projected image of the year competitions in the next month. You will be getting emails from me on that in the next week or so. It has select your images and more details. We're starting with our general category, which has 39 images with 5 places and 5 honorable mentions, followed by our monochrome, which has 34 entries with 5 places and 5 honorable mentions. So without much further ado, let's get started. First up, Butterfly Abstract, Alina Kesey. And by the way, Dave, the number that's underneath the maker's name corresponds with the number of the on the link I sent you of the image.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I've actually done a lot of butterfly photography because where I lived in Massachusetts, Westford, Massachusetts has a place called the Butterfly Place, an indoor, butterfly place. I spent a lot of time there, and I still sell my cards there. So I really like butterfly photography. This is an interesting abstract. I like the design of it. The colors I think are a little. It looks like a flash was used and kind of washed out the gold colors a little bit from the monarch. But I do like the design of it and all the lines leading through it.
Okay, next up is My First Show, Alan Wiggins.
This is an interesting picture. I can see what's going on here. It looks like she's being graded on, yeah, she obviously, it's a show, so she's being graded by a judge here. It's nice color and it's nice saturation and everything. Kind of would prefer to see the other end of the horse though. That would have helped, I think, instead of, half the picture being the back end of the horse. But it's a nice arrangement, nice composition here. The 3 subjects in it.
Next up is It Just Needs a Little Paint, Barb Lawton.
This I thought was an interesting subject too. I think it might have been better if you had cropped out the cobwebs on the right. I kind of did that with my hand. I thought it made a better subject that way. There's a lot in this picture, and I think it's a little high in contrast. It's obviously a sunny day here, and sometimes I'd like to see more saturated colors, but I do like the subject. I do like the fact that you saw an interesting subject here.
Next up is Heavy Metal, Bill Lanahan.
Yeah, so this one I thought was interesting. I'm not really sure what I'm looking at here, but it's a nice arrangement. I like the diagonal lines coming from the upper right down through the picture, and also from the lower right up through the picture. And I know it's hard to get, for any kind of silver, it's hard to keep a lot of detail because it's so much contrast, but you did a good job here keeping the detail. It's just a little bit hard to figure out what it's a picture of, but it's a nice piece of art. It's a nice arrangement.
Next up is Lone Butte, Bill Lanahan.
So obviously I like doing landscape photography. Here it looks like it's a sunset, and you've got that one butte still in the sun. I think maybe to improve it, you could have gotten something more in the foreground, a little bit closer in the foreground to give more depth to the picture. Somehow not have half of the picture in the shade, but I do like the lighting on the butte, and I like how you have that nice level horizon and show some sky up at the top.
Next up is Berncastle Rooftops, Claudia Jakubowski.
Well, it's a nice, it looks like it's all fog. It must be, could be early in the morning. I like all the fog in the mountains there. And it's certainly nice architecture of those rooftops. I keep looking down at the bottom of the picture, like I would like to have seen the bottoms of the buildings. I think it might have been more interesting to see the rest of the buildings down the bottom, just because I keep looking down there. But I do like how the buildings are offset by that background.
Next up is Tobermory Mill, Dow Smith.
Well, this is a very picturesque town, obviously, and there's a lot going on here. And certainly you've got a beautiful sky to go with it. So it's a great scene. There's lots of other, I think if you had zeroed in on something, you could have gotten a more dramatic picture, such as that red, yellow, and blue buildings there on the right. Maybe gotten that with that sky. I think it would have been one nice picture. Also that boat down on the lower right and the reflection. So it's a nice, obviously it's a beautiful location, but I think you could have zeroed in on something more here and still kept that dramatic sky.
Next up is Highland Cattle Drive, Mole, Dow Smith.
I'm guessing that those two women in the back on the motorbikes are kind of herding these cattle down the road. And I don't know if you're still in your car. If it looks like it's from a car. It's an interesting picture. Maybe a little more detail in the shadows would have helped, like the one on the right, to see a little more detail there. But certainly an interesting location and interesting thing to see.
Next up is Winter is Snow Much Fun, John Haywood.
Well, I think you did a good job here keeping detail in the snow, where it's all white. I can still see shadows and some detail in it. I think it kind of needs a center of interest though, something that will draw your eye to rather than bouncing around to the branches. So I think you did a good job here on the lighting. And good exposure.
Next up is Spring is Coming, Jean Haywood.
Well, this one, when I first saw it, I thought, wow, this is amazing. The four birds, and it is. It's a good shot. I like that you caught the snow and stopped the snow, you know, with a fast shutter speed. Then I looked at the individual birds, and some of them you can't, you know, like the one in the middle, it's kind of hard to even see its head. So there's not much more you could have done with this, but I do like it. I like the four separated birds, and just you know, maybe if you'd taken more pictures, you could have gotten one where their heads are more posed better. But it's a good shot.
Next up is Playground Abstract, Joe Catronio.
Yeah, I like this. It's an interesting picture, and I especially like the light going right down the center. That streak of light that you caught going right down the center. It's kind of a bullseye, but I guess that's what you were going for. I think if there's something peeking its head out one of those holes would have added a lot to it. But I like the lighting and the symmetry of it.
Next up, Seashell, Joe Catronio.
It's an interesting subject, and I like the way that it's offset against the background. I like that you kept the depth of field short here so that it's a very blurred background. It really sets off the shell nice. And also I like the way you caught the reflection. The framing is good. And I also like the blue section on the right of the background. So it's a nice composition of an interesting subject.
Next up, Three Red Doors, Kim Koza.
Well, I think you certainly, something caught your eye here that was really, really nice. It's really a nice scene. And I like the fact that it's three doors and three different things. I noticed three different mats, three different mail slots. And I think those are doorbells above the numbers on the door. So those are three different things. So I like the way this is all set up. And obviously in photography, you'll try to get things in threes, and you did a good job here.
Next up is Fantastic Catch, Linda Tomasulo.
I like the diagonal line going across this picture from the lower right to the upper left. And I also like that leaf is, you've got your center of interest there, something to draw your eye. That little leaf stuck in the fern there. The background is good. It sets off the lighting on this fern in the foreground. So I think that's nice. The whole composition of it is really nice.
Next up, Shadow Walker, Linda Tomasulo.
Yeah, you were lucky here to get the lighting in the background, a well-lit background, so that you can get this silhouette in the foreground. I like the way it's framed by the leaves. You did a really good job there. I tried to think if it would be more interesting if he was facing forwards versus background, but backwards, but I don't think so. I think this is nice the way this is set up and framed.
Next up, Jackson and Tracy, Marguerite Hill.
I like these two portraits. The boy, obviously, it's a beautiful portrait of the boy and the big blue eyes. What you could have done here, I think, was use a shorter depth of field to kind of blur out the background. It's kind of a busy background. If these two people were set off against just a solid textured background, I think it really would have been a lot more dramatic. But you certainly caught that boy at a great position and great expressions too on both of them.
Next up is Dare You to Touch This Wall, Phil Olivo.
I had to chew on this one for a while. Actually, I actually Googled this theater sports dumb wall and found it. I wanted to see what it was. It's an interesting spot. Yeah, dare you to touch this wall. It is a good title. So it's nice. I like seeing the title there and the Tommy Lee. I like the writing that you caught in it. It's a good combination of things here. Another shot might have been if you zeroed in on some of those the gums sticking off the window ledge there and gotten like a close-up of that and some of the window. It might have been a more dramatic picture.
Next up. Where did the carousel go? Phil Olivo.
I was wondering what this was. So it's a closed-up carousel building. I like how you captured the top. You got right up to the top of the building here, and it's a nice composition. It's a nice. You included a lot of the, good amount of the building. And I like all the detail you got in it. Also, I think I like having those people there so that it's not just a picture of just a picture of the building. I think you did a good job here with what you had.
Okay, next up is Rainy Day Blues, Rich Schreibstein.
Yeah, so I like the blue umbrella, the blue sweatshirt, and the blue boots here against the brown wall. It really offsets the colors nice. And also the flowers notice the flowers in the window in both windows. It's a beautiful scene on a rainy day, and I like the saturated colors here too. Nice job.
Next up is Glory Bug, Rich Schreibstein.
Another interesting subject. This one I thought that it's a nice composition of it. It's placed well in the frame. I think you could have used more detail in the shadows. Maybe you could have done something in Photoshop to bring out some details in the shadows and the tires. I mean, it's a high contrast photo. That's the problem. It's a high contrast photo of a car with a lot of white in it, which kind of darkened your scene and made the trees and the shadows really darkened. And I think if you had brought that into Photoshop or something like that and pulled out detail in the shadows, some highlights in the shadows, I think it would have improved it.
Next up is Building Their Home, Robert Neer.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if this osprey, I assume this osprey is bringing this the branch to the nest here. So it's perfect timing of taking the shot with the osprey's wings fully extended like this. Nice timing. Too bad it wasn't facing this way too, but that's nice. I wonder how long this nest is going to last here on top of this crane or whatever it is. So it's a very interesting shot.
Next up is Some Like It Hot, Rob Klein.
Yeah, I like the background of these peppers. They stand out nicely against the background, and you caught real nice detail in the peppers too. So I like the lighting of it. And I think it stands out well against the background. So nice job on it.
Okay. Next up is Rice Paper Butterfly, Ronald Spear.
Well, the flower here is really sharp. The butterfly is really sharp too. So you did a good job there. It really stands out well against the butterfly, against the red of the flowers, the yellow of the flower. What kind of bothered me is the black background. Obviously it wasn't a night shot, so wondering why the background is all black. The other thing is the butterfly has kind of gotten old. They only last about 2 weeks, and this one is starting to lose its wings. Sometimes it's from people picking them up a lot. I don't know if that's what happened here, but it's a nice shot of the butterfly. of an old butterfly.
Next up is warming up, Ronald Spear.
So I'm assuming this heron is drying its wings, it looks like. I don't know they did that. Like anhingas do. But so you got it in a very different position that you don't usually see. And I like it stands out well against the reeds, the green reeds in the background. So I think it's a nice composition here.
Next up is Mr. Pelican is watching you, Sean Sullivan.
This one has nice lighting too. A little bit overexposed on the pelican. Nice position, and I like the background too there. I guess I would have preferred to see it move its head out to a profile so you could see its head instead of straight on. But the lighting on it I think is nice.
Next up is Starting Dinner, Sean Sullivan.
It's a nice location. I don't know where this is, but a lot of stuff to look at here, and I think it's very well exposed. It's not an easy exposure to do. You can see the light rays coming in through the window, I noticed, right at her, and you caught that well. So I think the composition is very nice and a very nice exposure. Not easy to do.
Next up is Hi Horsey, Sharon Silversmith.
Yeah, it's a nice picture. I like those purple boots. With a portrait like this, I mean, I'd like to either see what she's looking at or see her face pointed forwards. So the fact that you've got her looking out at something, you don't really see much of her face, and also don't really see what she's looking at. But it's nice colors.
Next up is the Town Hall Christmas Globes, Thomas Whitmore.
Yeah, this is a nice nighttime shot, and I like that you kept the building in the and it's well exposed for a night. You know, it's a nighttime exposure. Looks like it could be a time exposure for those lights. The only thing I'd say is, you know, I'm not sure why you chopped off the bottom of it and just showed the top 3/4. I would have preferred, I think, to see the whole tree. But I like that the exposure of it.
Okay, next up is Goofy Foot Air, Thomas Whitmore.
Well, this is certainly perfect timing and a perfect exposure and very fast shutter speed, obviously. So you certainly caught this right. The only thing that would have improved it is if you could have seen his face and the expression on his face. Everybody always wants to see the eyes, but unfortunately you couldn't get everything here. But you did a great job with the timing and the stop action.
Okay, honorable mentions. First up, Spectral Crossing, Neil Shapiro.
What I like here is the red across the top, and then the blue in the middle, and then the green below that, and then the kayaker below that. So I like the kind of the vertical layers or horizontal layers, whatever, of the colors here. The red, blue, green, and the kayaker also is framed very, very well here. You were lucky to be at this spot at the right time.
Next up is Where's My Body, Sharon Silversmith. I'm sorry, Feeding Loon.
Yeah, I thought something
Alan
was
Williams, I'm
strange
sorry.
about this.
My,
So I was at a place 2 weeks ago, go down South Carolina, where we're feeding ducks in a pond like this, these kind of ducks, but obviously this was taken out in the wild. And I think you were so lucky to find it like this. And I don't know, you know, how you got this close to the loon, whether it was from a kayak or from the shore or what, or a very long lens. But I think this, you know, it's perfectly sharp. too bad he's mostly underwater, which they usually are, but I think it's great that you caught him just like this with the fish in its beak.
Next up is a sure sign of spring, Barb Lawton.
I like the sharpness of this, how you got that, the center of interest there, that thing hanging down from the branch, perfectly sharp. And I like the diagonal lines, and I like the fact that the background is completely out of focus. So did a great job on this.
Okay, are you going to mispronounce this one? Kinderdijk in the Fog, Claudia Jakubowski.
I thought this was a great scene because I like scenes where there's something in the foreground and then a nice scene in the background, and that's what you have here with this boat in the foreground. And it's a nice foggy day, and I like the way it's not really a leading line, but I like how your eye goes out into the back towards the left of the picture. Another thing you could try here, I just thought of this, is to flip this one horizontally, because your eye tends to start with the left-hand side, and you've got that empty bunch of water on the left. I bet if you flip this horizontally, you wouldn't even notice the water on the left there.
Okay, next up is Where's My Buddy, Sharon Silversmith.
So I actually laughed out loud when I saw this. I think it was great to see this. I know, obviously, I don't think it was planned. I think he just noticed it and shot the picture and decided to enter it. So I just think it's a really funny picture. And it was great that you saw this and shot it and used it in the competition.
And our winners, in 5th place, T. Alina Kesey.
This was very good, interesting still life. Very well composed. It's very well balanced with the spoon on the left and those, whatever those are, slices of lemons or oranges or whatever they are on the right, and then the way you place those, those pieces up above. It's a good, you put it together very well here. I think it's very well composed with the three sections, and so your eye keeps going through the 3 sections.
In 4th place, Nature's Palette, Neil Shapiro.
I thought this was a great composition and a great exposure. Another one where you're just so lucky to be at the right spot and the right time up in the building, during the sunset. And, when I see pictures like this, first thing I think of, well, they put it together, but I don't think so. This looks real. And I love the way the sunset's reflected in the river, and the way the buildings are all so sharp, and you got so much detail in the buildings, but kept was able to expose the sunset perfectly.
In 3rd place, Standing Watch, Robert Neer.
This one I thought was perfectly set. You got him at a nice angle. You got a lot of the, a good amount of the branches in, which certainly adds to the picture. A lot of times when I see pictures like this, I think they're taken in a cage or in a zoo or something, but obviously it's not, because you got the sky here. And I just think you did a great job capturing this. Obviously with a pretty long lens, that was very sharp. Good job.
2nd place, Beach Bum Bird, Ron Klein.
Well, this is another great timing picture, because I just love how that bird's foot is about to go into the sand, but isn't yet. It's just barely touching the sand, so it's walking along there. And I like the background, how that, the texture of the gray at the top going down to the brown. So you've got a perfect exposure, perfect amount of depth of field, and the bird is extremely sharp. And it's perfect lighting too, so it's great all around.
And in first place, Sunflower Duo, Kim Koza.
So I love these two pictures, and I love the background of them too. I like saturated colors, and this, I think the exposure is perfect on them. The colors came out perfect, I think. I like the lighting, how the lighting is, it's not all the same lighting, it's different all around. And I think it stands out very well against this background that you have behind it. So I also like the way that the two are, next to each other. It's kind of like a mug shot where they show the front view and the side view of somebody in the same picture. So I think they're both beautiful pictures, and they go very well together.
Well, congratulations to our winners and all beautiful pictures. Let's move on to our monochrome category. Got 34 images, 5 places, 5 honorable mentions. Excuse me. First up, dancing can in the snow. Alina Kesey.
Yeah, another great composition here. Kind of a leading line from the left up into the picture. Nice exposure. Not much more you could have done with this. Fits the category perfectly, and also like how you kept those trees in the background on the left and to the upper right to offset the foreground trees. Nice job on the composition here.
Next up is Living on the Edge, Neil Shapiro.
So it's a very dramatic picture and nice exposure. I still have a hard time figuring out what's going on here. Whether this guy is about to kayak into these rocks or whether you placed him here. And if you placed it here, it's kind of small, I think, compared to the waves. But I think, it's just difficult. For me, it was difficult to figure out what was going on, whether this was a waterfall as he was going over. But if it is, then I'm not sure how far he is away from these rocks. So it was kind of hard to see what was going on here for me.
Next up is Girl on Waterfall, Alan Wiggins.
I like the timing, not the timing, but the length of the exposure here. It's not, just blurred out the waterfall. So it wasn't a real long exposure, but it was obviously on a tripod with some amount of time. And I think that girl adds a lot to the picture, both in perspective. So you get an idea of the size of this, because otherwise you really wouldn't know for sure how big this was. But I think it's a nice job on the waterfall without it getting all washed out and without freezing the action. So even though it's, you stopped her, there's still a lot of movement in the waterfalls, which I thought was good.
Next up is Ollie Oops, Barb Lawton.
Yeah, so this I thought was a very good composition with the rope. You've got the rope there going up, you've got the shadow of it down below, and then the boat. I'm glad that you didn't include the entire boat. I think you saw, a nice shot in the front of the boat with the shadow and with the rope. And so I think it was very well composed.
Next up, the Waterfront Ambience, Bill Lanahan.
Yeah, it's an interesting place. The exposure is good, and I like the fact that you've got the reflection there. But I think I would have tried to do something more of this. Not an especially, nice looking buildings like the roof too. So maybe if you had gotten gotten down lower and maybe gotten more of the reflection and less of the actual building, like cut down on the roof. So if you've gotten, instead of cutting it in half right across the horizontally, maybe have 3/4 of the picture be reflection and 1/4 of the picture being the bottom part of the building. I think it might have been more dramatic, but it's a nice exposure.
Next up is coastal weather, Bill Lanahan.
Another leading line here that leads out to that rock and the very dramatic clouds you have here. So it's a beautiful scene. If it was possible without you getting too wet, moving off to the left a little more, and maybe down lower and gotten more of the water instead of the lower left here, which is just sand. I think it would have been more dramatic, and possibly instead doing a vertical picture of those, that, you know, the suds there, the line of the water, the rock, and the clouds.
Next up is Dandelion Clock, Claudia Jakubowski.
Yeah, this certainly sets off well against the black background, and I like the way you've got those 4 pieces of it coming off the top. That certainly added a lot to it, because without that, I think it would have been a pretty simple picture. But I do think it stands out well against the black background, and it's a nice exposure. Also very sharp too, very sharp in the center of the dandelion.
Next up is the Bandencroft Isle of Harris, Scotland, Dow Smith.
Yeah, so this is kind of a drab, you know, scene here, but it's a very interesting building, and I especially like the fence on the left against those clouds with those vertical lines and the fence there. It's an interesting building. The sky looks like you may have touched it up a little, and I think it could have been, especially like up to the upper left, upper right of the chimney, towards the center left. There's some repeated patterns. I think if you had maybe blurred the whole thing again, it would have smoothed it out a little bit more. But it's a nice scene overall, and also a nice placement of the house in the frame.
Okay, next is Rackwick Bay Island of Hoy Orkney.
Another nice exposure with a nice dramatic sky. I like the fact that you have some foreground here with the grass. Maybe I would have gotten down a little lower. I always look for a center of interest in here. I don't, you know, it's certainly a big mountain and a nice sky, but I keep looking around for something in the picture. I see this little building or something on the left there, but I think it could have been more dramatic if you had something more in the foreground.
Next up is You Light Up My World, Jana Kaywood.
Yeah, it's a nice dramatic picture of the lighthouse against another good sky with nice clouds too. So that came out nice. It looks like it, a nice day too. The lower left and lower right kind of dark, and I don't know if that's like because you had a sunshade on or what, or a wide angle lens maybe, but it's a nice exposure on it though.
Next up, Water Lily, Joe Catronio.
So you did a great job here with taking a picture of something white and being able to keep this much detail in it. It's not easy to do, I know. So the exposure is great on the flower. The background, I think the only thing you could have done to improve it, I think, was make it a horizontal shot of just the flower, include some of the background, but maybe not that much. And I think it might have been more dramatic.
Next up is Dandelion Puff, Joe Catronio.
Yeah, this is a good exposure too. There's a lot going on here. And it's certainly interesting that you saw this and took a picture of it. Maybe a little bit more depth of field so that more of it was in focus might have helped, or maybe zeroing in on 3 of these instead of all of them, like the 3 ones in the lower left, and just get those 3 might have been a better composition, but it's an interesting subject.
Next up, Anvil, Kim Koza.
Yeah, perfect exposure of this, and got so much detail in this, in the ground there and in that wood. And I like the background. Nice. I like the flat lighting too for this subject. So it's a perfect picture for monochrome. It came out great, well exposed and nicely composed.
Next up is Tree and Leaves, Linda Tomasulo.
Yeah, this one, I like the leaves against the tree. And I also like the leaves in the foreground. I think maybe if you had made it more vertical, like more of a little bit more detail in those leaves against the tree, just concentrated on that more, and the texture of the bark. I think it might have improved it a little, but it's a nice subject, and it's well exposed. I like the flat lighting on it.
Next up is Flower Hat, Marguerite Hill.
This is well exposed too. I like the blurry background that you have here. The only thing I would have done maybe to improve it, I think, is to focus on the center of the flower there. If that had been sharper, instead of the tips of the leaves off to the left, not leaves, but the petals off to the left, which is really what your focus is aimed at. I think it might have been a little bit better to focus on the center of the flower instead.
Next up is, yeah, it would be great if you drove today, Phil Olivo.
Yeah, I like these ones of the street scenes. The exposure is good. There's nothing that's washed out and nothing that's too much in the shadow, so it's perfect exposure. It's a great monochrome. Maybe a little more of the, maybe moving off to the left a little, maybe might have helped to with the composition a little bit. Maybe he would have made that bench a little bit shorter and not taking up so much of the picture, but it's great exposure and a nice scene.
Next up is Tall Tales, Phil Olivo.
This one I thought was a great exposure too, and great job on the monochrome. So much detail in his beard and in her hair, and in the jeans of the guy in the center. So I think it's a very nice exposure, nice background, and you've got 3 people in nice poses.
Next up is Escalator Training, Rich Schreibstein.
This one I thought was interesting too. The exposure is good. I don't know. There's not much you could do here. I mean, obviously these escalators are moving. I wonder if you could have done something to show the movement, like a low, slow exposure, so that the whole scene is sharp, but there's some movement in the escalator. But it's a nice, perfectly good exposure.
Next up is Rail Station, Robert Neer.
Yeah, this is a very interesting railroad station. I like all the detail you got in the ceiling here, which probably wasn't easy to do with a dark scene like this. I like the lights you had, but there's lights on there. If you had gotten someone in the picture, I think it would have added to it too, maybe off to the side, maybe one person sitting on one of those benches. Might have been nice, not looking at the camera, but add something to it. But it's a nice monochrome with a lot with shades all the way from light to from white to black and everything in between. So you did a good job there.
Next up is Morning Reflections, Robert Neer.
Yeah, what I keep looking at here is the reflection down on the lower right. I think that's really nice there. There's a lot going on here, and it's a nice exposure too. Nice colors in it, and it's kind of a drab day with that white sky. Maybe trying like a vertical here right down the center would have been another nice photo here, but this one, exposure is good and it came out good.
Next is Salmon River Falls, Rob Klein.
Yeah, I like this the time of the length of the exposure here too. I like the way you've caught and this one, which was obviously a longer exposure than that other waterfall. I like the way that the waterfall is all blurred, but you still got a lot of detail in it. It's not all just white. And you were also, even though you kept detail in the white of the waterfalls, you also kept a lot of detail in the moss or whatever those plants are in the background and the trees. You did a good job here with both light and dark parts of the scene.
Next up is 501, Sean Sullivan.
Yeah, this I thought was an interesting combination here. I was trying to figure out if there was some story to go along with this. But I like those lines up along the top. If you look closely at that, it's really nice how sharp all that is and all those lines going on there. But I think it's a nice juxtaposition of the picture and the clock there. And it's certainly perfectly exposed.
Next up, the Smokehouse, Sean Sullivan.
Yeah, another one that's very sharp, a lot of detail, and you've got a lot of nice skies in these monochrome pictures. This is another very dramatic sky, and the tree stands out very well against it. If that was a light sky, you wouldn't be able to see the detail in the tree at all. Also, the building is very well exposed, and if you look down to the left, I like the fact that you can see all the detail on those trees, even though they're dark. So you did a good job on the exposure here in all parts of the picture. It's very good, and also a nice composition. I like the way that the tree sits in the picture and the location of the house in the frame, in the lower third of the frame.
Next up is Lieutenant Davis, Thomas Whitmore.
Yeah, this one is an interesting picture too. You've got his car there, or van, whatever that is, and him there in the hat. The exposure is good. I would have, you can't see his eyes obviously, since he's got glasses on, but it's a nice combination. I like the way you've got the white snow, the white van, and the white in his hat. So it's a great monochrome picture. If it were color, it wouldn't. If you kept the original colors, it wouldn't have stood out the way a monochrome stands out for this picture.
Okay, honorable mentions. First up, Morning Reflection, Neil Shapiro.
Yeah, it's a very dramatic scene here, and I think that person adds a lot, and his reflection adds a lot to the picture. But it's great that you had these clouds come by here, and you've got the reflection of them in the water. So I think it's a great exposure and a beautiful scene.
Next honorable mention is Portland Headlight in Fog and Snow, Claudia Jakubowski.
Yeah, so since I used to live in Massachusetts, I'd go up to Portland Headlight a lot. I have a lot of pictures of Portland Headlight. This is a very dramatic one because it's just so much, obviously black and black and white. I like how you've got the snow down the bottom. I'm wondering if you had moved off to the right, if you would include those, I know those cliffs down there to the right, so if you could have gotten some of those cliffs in it with the snow and the white, if it might have added something to it. But I do like the composition of this, and I like the lighting that you've got.
Okay, next honorable mention is cigar, anyone? Johnny Kaywood.
So this looks like it was a very wide angle lens, the way you're right up against his hands there. And it really, lessens the depth of the picture. So I like that. I like the way it's composed with the hands framing the picture there. I also like I don't know if that's smoke in the background. At first I thought, well, maybe it's smoke from a cigar, but I don't think so. But I like the clouds or that smoke, whatever that is in the background, how it offsets the guy on the bike. And I like the wide angle of it too.
Next up is the crossings in the snow, Linda Tomasulo.
So this I thought was a great picture with these trees in the foreground, and then you've got those trees in the background. They really offset each other very well. But what I really liked is the way you got snow here. And I think I don't know if you added the snow or what, but either way, I think it came out very well and really added a lot to it. If those pieces of snow there weren't there, I don't think it would be as dramatic as it is now. So I like it. I like the way it's composed now, I like the lighting.
The last honorable mention is Thatcher Tree, Rich Schreibstein.
Yeah, look at this, the swirls in the sky, and I like the shadows on the ground. And the tree in the middle is just, we've got a lot of nice things going for you here. The tree stands out very well against those clouds in the sky. It's really nice. And then these shadows, I don't know what you could have done with it. It's really nice.
And winners in fifth place. Are you going to share? Barb Lawton.
So I like the lighting on this too. Very, very nice how you held all the colors from black to white are here. It's very well exposed. I like the fact that she's looking at him, asking, are you going to share? And I think it's a great portrait of both of them with very nice lighting. Well done, well composed. I like that pumpkin over there too.
In fourth place, Sunburst Silhouette, Alan Wiggins.
I thought this was really nice timing that you got this guy walking by right in the center and caught that light coming through that opening in whatever that object is that we're looking at there. I think it's very well done. I do like the nice, the narrow vertical composition that you have, the way you framed it, very narrow. I think that works well with these big, long, tall structures here.
Third place, The Visitor, Ron Klein.
So I thought this was great. I don't know how you did this. I still don't know how you, obviously this isn't set up. The people, they're not smiling. I like the title of it, even the fact that I assume by the visitor, you mean you, that, you're a visitor to wherever they are. And I just think this is great, the way they're all looking at you, like seriously, not smiling like a set up pose. I think this is great, and great exposure too with the highlights on their foreheads like that. It's a great picture all around.
In second place, Panning the Kitchen, Lena Kesey.
Well, this is just perfect for anything with silver like this. Is going to be perfect for a monochrome picture. And there's just so much here. I keep looking at all the object in this. I don't know how you did this with so many layers of items here all in one picture. But I looked at this for a long time. I like the exposure you have on it. Nothing is washed out. There's not too much highlighting here. It's just great all around, and a good composition. I like the fact that you made it square, the square frame on this.
And in first place, Birds on a Wire, Kim Koza.
So this one I thought was a great piece of art. It's, the subject that you picked to do this texturing on, I thought was perfect for it. It looks like a piece of art, and even down to those spiral things coming off the transformers, I thought came out great. The way you did this. And each of the birds are all facing the same way. It looks like they're all lined up there. It's just a great composition and a great use of this filtering, whatever you call it, to do this. Great subject for doing that with, I thought.
Congratulations, everybody. Great images. So sad
The monochromes I thought were amazing overall. They were.
And so sad this is our last submitted competition for the season.
Yeah.
And thank you, David. Wonderful job. Anybody any questions for David? You can unmute yourself. Anybody? Comments, questions?
Yeah, it was great. I like the monochrome and the color too. I remember last year there was 3 categories I had to do, so it was nice to only have to do 2 this time.
Yeah.
How'd you get
notice?
3? It's
There were
always
3. There were 3. I don't remember what they were, but there was some special one.
I'll end your mystery on the kayaker, David. It was not fake, it was real, and it's just telephoto compression. He's about 10 feet from those rocks, and that's at Great Falls, Virginia. And,
He's 10 feet from the rocks and headed into the rocks.
no, he's headed straight down. And the rock,
Okay,
I'm far enough away, that's telephoto compression that looks a little bit close.
thank you. Okay, yeah.
No, he was
I
not.
thought, I was thinking that at the end, that was telephoto,
I
but
just thought I'd straighten that out.
that's great.
All right. So get your creative images in for next week's competition. And other than that,
So don't forget next month to tell Paul Schwartz who your judge was the previous month, because he knows me very well.
they were childhood friends. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Well, we started photography together, going up hiking the Adirondacks, 46 peaks together all the time.
All right.
You said, Sean, what was next month? What's going on next month?
Next week is the creative competition,
Oh, okay, I thought, yeah, I was thinking.
and next month will be our projected image of the year for assigned topics, and the week after that will be the projected image of the year for general and monochrome. I will be sending out an email with instructions how to select your images from whatever you've submitted this year. So look for that.
Okay, good. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, well, it's just you'll get an email with a link, and you go with a password, and you'll see all your images that you submitted this year. You just select the 2 that you want to submit for each category, and that's all you need to do.
Yeah, there's a presentation also at the end of April.
Yes.
When's the deadline for next Wednesday?
Midnight Saturday this
Okay,
week.
thank you.
Again, 2 images for that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you, David.
Did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you
Great
very
photo.
much, David.
See everybody
welcome.
next
Good night,
week.
everybody.
Thank you. Good
Good night.
night.
Night,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.